This is Trekland HQ, and we are live. Yeah. What did we learn at Universal's Star Trek Fan Fest nights? Today on Trekland Tuesdays Live, episode 397, with me, Dr. Trek, Larry Nemechek, coming at you here from the heart of Trekland through Portal 47, and yes, Trekland Treks. More on that later. Welcoming everybody back once again for some sanity, clarity, and a bigger picture in all things Star Trek. Hey, everybody, here it is, another Tuesday of nominally no real Star Trek news, but that's okay. We still keep managing to find it. And yes, the biggest news of this week, and I realize it's not going to affect a lot of folks around the world unless you're living vicariously, is the opening of the show at Universal, which, let's be clear, is not a Star Trek event. Star Trek is one of 8 segments of this pie that they're opening up, that everybody is enjoying consuming. Hey, look, I'm going to dive into that pie in just a second. But first, if you are new to Trekland Tuesdays Live, welcome, welcome. I'd love to know how you got here. Hey, we have a wonderful chat community over here. The TTLers are great. Just jump in, introduce yourself, and let us know where you're coming from. How's the weather? How's the trek in your corner of the woods? If you've been a while, if you've never been on, we've had people that have been lurkers, and something finally motivates them to jump in and say hi. Maybe I finally do something right. They want to sound off about it. But anyway, if that's you, let us know. Of course, as the veterans here know, as the TTLers know, if you are on Facebook, you're only going to see Facebook comments. So if you're on Twitch, or even best of all, YouTube, you'll see all the comments, all right? And you can have the most conversations. Best of all, for me anyway, we're not monetizing here. So if you do cross YouTube, you can do super chats with me and pose a question, throw a little silver my way, and it would be much appreciated. Yeah, another Tuesday here. Oh, and if you're watching us later, not live, that's awesome. Keep the commentary going. Keep the conversation going. And maybe someday you can watch us on a Tuesday afternoon at 1-ish, 2-ish Pacific. That's 4-ish Eastern and 9-ish UK and 10 Central Europe. Because that's what I like about this time of day, is having the worldwide group here. And the Aussies, they have 4 time zones in Australia or something crazy, maybe 5. And it's great to have them aboard when they can, and people from the other continents too, which we have had. South Americans, we've had folks from Africa. One show had some folks from Africa. Love to see it. I guess we're still up on Antarctica though, which is what happens to a lot of places. But yes, at a time when I was wondering if we would have much, Star Trek news to talk about, something to react to, hopefully on the positive, along comes Universal Fan Fest nights, which has been on the radar. I should say it's been off the radar up until it just happened, which was odd to me. They put the word out last fall, but it's one of those things that it's not in your face till it's in your face. And I had a great time. Now, full disclosure, I went on my media. Yes, Fan Fest nights. And full disclosure, just for the Trekishness of it, that's what I talk about. That's what I visited. But to be clear, there were 8 segments there. And a lot of them I remembered right off. A couple of them, I should say this, a couple of them I would say, oh, it's anime. Well, the anime / gaming. So just to be clear, okay, the 8 different in varying fashions, all the segments included a Back to the Future, which Universal has the outdoor sets. The Courthouse Square is part of Universal Studios. You see it on their regular tour. Especially, they took people down there on this night. Had characters, had people portraying Marty and Doc Brown and Biff. And that was a lot of fun. It was called Destination Hill Valley. And they had a photo image thing you could do, insert yourself with the lions at Lions Estate. You could do a lot of things. And a lot of it was live action. And it was a lot of fun. But you had to go over to the shooting lot the same way they do on a tour. And they used their regular tour tram to get folks over there because everything else was pretty much up in the openings of Universal Studios Hollywood, if you've never been there, up near the front gates, right? So Back to the Future was one. There was a Dungeons and Dragons. These are all experiential, right? Interactive setups called Secrets of Waterdeep. So that was a whole thing set up that you could be interactive with. It had some Muppets involved, actually, too. Then you had something from, here's one of those I didn't know. The long-running hit anime series, One Piece. Okay, there was a One Piece there, Grand Pirate Gathering. There was another setup, another franchise pie was Jujutsu Kaisen, Hunger of the Cursed. Okay, now that is an anime. Very popular. If you know, you know. Good on you. Okay. Then there was a whole Harry Potter setup, which ironically is Warner Brothers, but it was housed at Universal because Warner Brothers doesn't do theme parks. Sound familiar? Yeah. Whole Harry Potter setup there. And then there was a Super Nintendo setup. Let's Go Yoshi. And then there was a Wicked. The Wicked was pretty much just Ethelba and Glinda and a photo setup. The two characters and the photo setup. That was pretty much it, but it was there. And when I passed by, a lot of little girls and their parents were in line for that. So those were the other franchises besides, Star Trek, which technically the event was called Red Alert, which of course it was. And it was a lot of fun. Now, the experience, it was opening night. They had a media. You may have seen a lot of influencers, Trek and otherwise, which is what they want, sharing a lot of videos, TikToks, short reels, and things. There was a media event a couple weeks ago, which I couldn't attend, conflict schedule. And what I'd wondered about was exactly how extensive things would be on this night. There wasn't a media event, except there was a red carpet. You may have seen a lot of this footage. You saw LeVar and Michelle Hurd and Tawny and Eugene and Will, a couple of the young ladies from Starfleet Academy making kind of their first big Star Trek event, which is kind of cool. I'm leaving somebody out. That was awesome to see. And it was pretty much just its own thing and out there for the newsreels. And then they did take them through the Star Trek Red Alert event at one point. But as a goer, and my media badge got me into the short line. But it was great to see. Now, what Universal nor Paramount could do about this evening was it was cold. It was weirdly cold. And it was a cold, rainy weekend. And that's supposed to change. But here's my thing. If you are going to be in SoCal, or if you're coming through, or if, as I found out, you're somewhere in the country and you saw this and you're so starving for Star Trek, you just decide to hop on and come on. Well, that's what some people did. Let me get to that. The event itself, and of course there was a sidebar, and a lot of the franchise pies, wedges, had this same too. There was also a branded Quarks bar. No, it looked nothing like they took one of their outdoor cafe event places, stand-up ordering, and just branded it for Quarks bar. You've seen some of that out there. I've got some footage and video clips that we're going to do too still. And then right across next to it was a 10 forward using the branding from the Picard style 10 forward, right? The 10 forward that looked neon-y. And they had premium drinks there. But there was let me just say this, there was a lot of time put into branding and being true to a Star Trek, if not the designs over there, but to the Star Trek food items. All the vegetarian items were called Vulcan, given Vulcan names. There was a Cardassian dog, which was like hot, flamey, crushed Cheetos dipped around a hot dog. There was some creativity there and some stuff that made sense. And it was a lot of fun, basically. But Star Trek got its own branded menu. Some of the others did too. And then you had the event, which had live actors. So here's what I wanted to get to. My reaction was it was a lot of fun. In fact, my biggest critique of the whole night, aside from the weather, and I couldn't do anything about that, my biggest critique of the whole night was there wasn't enough signage. You came in the front gate and I was wandering. You had a Fan Fest generic sign everywhere, like, don't worry, you're still on the right track. But there wasn't really an overall signboard or signboards to get you there. You just had to keep walking until you got to it. But generally, aside from the Wicked photo op, Star Trek was kind of the first thing you got to. There was a Star Trek photo op too, which was confusing. Between 10 Forward and Quark's Bar, there was a Enterprise D horseshoe rail with a captain's chair and then a banner behind it. And you could sit down, and a guy, staffer, taking pictures of you when you could take your own picture, but he was taking you, handing you a card. You could get your shot later. So the food greeted you before the event did, which was interesting. And you had to go on down and turn a corner and find your way there. There was also a big stage area where the Flux Capacitors band, maybe you've heard them at some sci-fi event or Comic-Con event, maybe even a Trek event. They were playing, and then there were interstitials with trivia from all the different franchises, which at the time was largely not attended because people were off doing the things. And it was so chilly that nobody was feeling like standing around. If you weren't in a thing, you were in one of the rides, you were probably overeating somewhere. So, Universal, just general, has had horror nights through October. And then over the years, it's kind of your basic backyard, church basement, haunted house field, theme park near you horror night, right? They set up events that people can walk through and all of that. And they do that and it's fun, right? This was kind of that same view in October, and it's gotten so big it spread in September. Lots of people are hired to be characters, et cetera, et cetera. And that's what they did here. As somebody told me from Universal, well, we do that. We thought that's a lot of fun. It's grown, but this will be nicer. So it was. Friday's opening night sold out by noon. The first weekend, these things run Friday, Saturday, Sundays. I should tell you this. Fan Fest is going to run through the weekend of May 18th, Sunday. So you've got 3 more weekends to get there, or 3 more weekends to see people posting about it, right? I say that because, and it starts at 7 o'clock, and you can go to, if you're interested, I'll tell you in a minute what to do. There's several different ticket passes to go. Basically, the park is shutting down, and it turns out over to yours unless you have an earlier pass or a 2-day pass. And the events are all spread out, right? So Universal is used to running an after-hours event like this. It's just not Halloween. And the general impression I got was that the powers that be were pretty impressed. They were pretty pleased by the results. So the Star Trek was interesting. Once you found it, it was a lot of fun. And the bottom line is, the first thing that struck me was, hey, they wound up very well. Look, there's a level of Paramount now cooperating. A lot of our friends in licensing, we're cooperating. We're overseeing. In fact, we're supplying reference. We're supplying material. This wasn't just Universal stood up on their own and paid money for a fee and did it. It was a cooperative venture, just the same way they're cooperating with the other franchisees, the other rights holders on those other franchises. And and that's why they had the influx of Star Trek people to open it. They had celebs there to open it, and they had handlers to walk around with. What's interesting is that a couple of them were there when Star Trek The Experience opened or had the majority of its run. And this is what I wanted to get to. Yes, on its own, as I stood in line and had the monitor, I was flashing back a little bit to Star Trek The Experience, the late, great Star Trek at the Las Vegas Hilton, right? And if you know, you know. If you are old enough and had the wherewithal from 1998 to 2008, you were able to get there once, twice, maybe every year. Maybe you went during the Vegas convention when STLV got started over at the Hilton originally. Here's the thing. it gradually dawned on me after I walked through and saw that, yes, there was more than, very famously, the Enterprise D bridge built for third season of Picard was used for the bridge set here. The scenario revolved around the D, but best of all, though, you weren't suddenly in the 24th century jumping back on the D. No, you were a tourist going out to 8th and Prime, the location of the Fleet Museum that we got in Picard, using Picard visuals, and you were going to visit ships, and the whole plot of the thing happens on the D. They built a mini sick bay with biobeds. They built a mini foreshortened version of engineering, complete with a warp core, some corridor, and a turbo lift. Now, what's very clever and subtle about this is, and you may have heard people talk about this online, I think the biggest complaint some people had is it wasn't to scale. They put railings on the bridge ramps because they had to for ADA compliance, because the ramps were steeper than ADA would allow, than disabled would allow. And yeah, it was sad to see that, but it didn't ruin the effect. We weren't trying to do a fan film or we weren't doing Picard season 3. The railings were fine. What was interesting was all the other construction they did. And it flies right past you, but maybe you catch it if you go around a second time. They make it a point to say that you're going to the D at 8th and Prime, and it has been modified for tour groups. So when you jump through that hoop, all bets are off. So yes, you can walk through a smaller version of sick bay, or maybe it's a secondary sick bay. You can go through a turbo lift elevator that's built for 40 people, 50 people maybe. You can do all that, and it's technically canon now. But it was the technology we didn't have in the 90s of large plasma screen view screens. You could do all that. It was amazing what they could do, and in different places, and just throw stuff up for window dressing, right? For set dressing. It was a lot of fun. It starts off with you getting on the tour just the same way the old experience did, the way Star Tours did. It's a staple, right? They have a lot of fun with it. You're probably already seeing the YouTubes up now. And after I went through the one time, the one thing that I had wondered about was I saw a transporter mentioned. And if you ever were lucky enough to go through the experience, you know what the coolest thing of the whole damn ride was, the original Klingon ride, was the transporter. Because you start off, the conceit there being you're a tourist in Vegas and you get hijacked by Korak, the time temporal mechanic scientist Klingon, which was resurrected for the finale of Voyager. And Vaughn Armstrong played both parts. But on film. But you're whisked away, you're beamed away from this touristy recreated transporter and wind up in the dark, and the lights come back up and you're on the real transporter. And it's an amazing effect. And part of it was the visceral tactile quality, which turned out to be a total accident. If you've ever heard about this, because if you're familiar with stage tech, the original flats, the walls were meant to be flown away like theater scenery on ropes, right? That's called flying. And the fly space at a theater is that tall vertical of a live theater, is that tall vertical shaft that you see above the stage. That's the fly space so that backdrops and flats can go up. Well, at the experience, they literally flew the touristy walls away. And the minute they cleared the height, they slid the real transporter ceiling in right behind it. It happens in a matter of 2 seconds, 3 seconds. It takes your breath away, but it also takes your skin crawl away, because accidentally that creates an imbalance just momentarily in the air pressure, which is amazing. And the first test or two, they thought it was a mistake and they were going to get rid of it. And some bright person said, no, that's wonderful. It adds to the experience. Well, coming into this, the one nod that I hoped wouldn't happen was that they were so ambitious at Universal Fan Fest that they were trying to recreate that experience because they weren't going to be able to. And thankfully, it was a little on the wimpy side, but it was cute. It was fun. You had mist, and you had transporter sounds, and no one tried to hit that bar. And that is perfectly fine. I'd rather had that than to have them try to go all out, because there was no way. There was no way. Because here's the bottom line, kids. You may see some people complaining about the railings on the bridge or anything else. Shut up. Look, and you may see a lot of people comparing this back to the experience. Oh, just shut up. The experience was a built, non-touring, quadrupled in the beginning, quadrupled effect, interactive space with ride machinery and museums, the whole bit. But it was built to last. It was going to sit there for years. It sat 10 years. It should have sat longer. Could have been upgraded, but there you go. It was in force. It was a foursome. 2 of them were taken out to put in the Borg encounter, but 2 of them remain. So it was a built thing. This is going to be sitting for a month in these spaces, like most of the rest of the events from FanFest. It's not sitting there all year. In that light, in that context, it was amazing. This was clearly the biggest interactive Star Trek anybody has had in ages, okay? That's been available. That is why several things started to domino in my brain. Thoughts came to me. Number one, yeah, the railing was a little disappointing, but hey, it's what they needed to do. And it's only there for a month. In fact, it's there for 4 long weekends, 4 Friday through Sunday weekends. Given that, my mind drifted over to, I wonder how many people who went to the experience and have missed it terribly and had nothing to replace it since can come to this and experience all that there was. It had a plot. It had a Star Trek cute little plot that was very Star Trekian. And you can't fault the basic story. It had live action actors. What would there were 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I can't remember now, but 6 or 8 live action actors, just the way the experience used to be. These actors are all in Picard era uniforms. They all look like young Starfleet officers. You've got people on screens also interacting in special effects. There were so many people, not the huge multi-million-dollar effort, but for what you're getting for a month, it was amazing. I just want to say kudos. You could tell there was probably a lot of, I have yet to hear exactly who did the script and how it was developed and created, but you could tell the fine hand of the oversight folks overseeing out of what exists now as Paramount licensing and events, what they were doing. And of course, that fine hand extended also over to the food menu and some of the branding and the Star Trek feel of the thing. Did the Quarks bar look like Quarks? No, it was not going to be there for more than they were using existing infrastructure. Did the 10 forward? There were some of the flats still from the 10 forward over. You've seen those too, that were used in the pop-ups a couple years ago. But for what it was a lot more than just for what it was. It was much more than I was expecting. I think they had all the notes right. But here's the thing. A couple of things occurred to me after we were done. And I went around twice. And I should say, by the way, that when you buy your ticket at whatever level, you're free to go anywhere. If you want to go to everything, you can. If you want to go more than once, you can. You're limited only by the size of the line. If you want to come and camp at Star Trekville and go through over and over and over again, go over and eat, check out what's happening on the stage if they're doing the Star Trek trivia, and then you want to go back through the line again and again and again, you can. There's no limit. Okay? It's not just for one and go. And then you can go somewhere else and come back. I do know that through the evening, and if you could watch I did 3 lives. They're all on my YouTube channel. I hope you go over and check them out. One, here's some of the things I started to pick up on this. While first looking at the food courts with the sun still up, I ran into a couple from Virginia who came out, saw this advertised, bought tickets the first day they were available, came out, and then put a whole week in California together, put a California vacation together, and have done other LA and SoCal things. And there's plenty to do. But this was the impetus for them to come. And I was like, oh, well, if this keeps up, if this gets repeated, then yay for everybody. Later on, I ran into someone I interviewed years ago. Turns out and you'll see these on the lives. She had been the last, Amy had been the last writing intern on Voyager, production intern, I should say, on Voyager. Oh, on Voyager. Yes, on Voyager. And then she had also left being an actor at the Experience to come to LA and do that. So I sat down and interviewed her for being an intern. We talked as much about, and that's where I learned about the characters keeping the running storylines going totally on their own back in the day. Wasn't part of the job, wasn't part of the plan, but the actors who were actors were so bored, they had to come up with something to keep them, who were walking around, not part of the scripted, although they could be, but the characters who greeted you, especially the Vulcans and the Ferengi and the Klingons and later on the Borg and Andorians. If you went to Quarks back in the day, there were always walking costumed characters around, and they gave themselves names, they gave themselves backstories, and eventually they had a long-running saga at the Time Station, which was their in-canon developed explanation for why this was sitting there in the middle of Vegas in the 90s. Not part of the plan. The actors came up with the Time Station. Amy had done that and been that. And for the last few years, 10 or more years, she'd been mid-level management at Universal. And we had a great reunion. Her 20-year-old daughter or so was there in Picard Command Red, and of her own volition, not forced by mom. And we had a great catch up. That's all in there too. And we looked, and one of the things we realized was the Universal app had queue times. So another realization from this night is we looked to see all those other franchises' wait times, 10, 15 minutes. Okay, that's healthy. That's good. 2 hours into the opening night, the Star Trek wait time was 35 minutes. Now, that was healthy. It's not 2 hours. It's not opening day Indiana Jones or any other first day, famously first day Disney, mob, way back in the day, Star Tours. 3-hour wait to get on it when it first opened. But we thought that was that the wait was basically triple at Star Trek what it was at every other location for whatever the setup was. Nice touch. Nice touch. Yes, learned that the whole Fan Fest was a sellout by noon. Haven't heard yet how the weekend went. It was cold. That might have depressed numbers. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. It's set up for 4 weekends. I learned that Horror Nights originally, 10 years ago, whatever, had started off as just 4 weeks, and it had been so popular that they expanded it. Will that happen to Fan Fest? I don't know. The general buzz was that there was no reason why not to have it. Look, it put the park to use for Universal's eyes. If they have it again, it generally was a success. It got people there. If they have it again, will Star Trek be one of the franchises? I think it will. And here's the thing. Since Paramount pulled back from having its own division after the Viacom divorce and Paramount Parks was sold off, that included... well, it had already been sold up, but that included the Experience was classed as a Paramount Park. Now, before the Paramount divorce, a company called Cedar Fair that ran theme parks had bought and was running the Experience the last 3-4 years, 5 years, right after the Borg encounter was put in, I believe. So Paramount still, like Warner Brothers, has no theme park division to showcase its major franchises. And so Warner Brothers installs Harry Potter gear and events at Universal, just like the 80s, before Vegas and before the Experience and Paramount Parks, the original Star Trek Adventure interactive experience for a big crowd, with some people pulled out to be in the show, that used special effects, live effects, and mirrors, and kind of virtualizing on an 80s, 90s scale, ended in 91. That had been at Universal. So in a way, this was a little bit coming back. That was a dedicated event. This was one of 8 franchises in Fan Fests. So there is a little bit of history there. Will Star Trek be back next year? Who knows? Maybe the decision has already been made. Maybe they're going to wait and see how things go. If it goes the way it did opening night, Star Trek was very popular. Might have been the most popular bit of the week. Of course, that was a Friday night. When the kids show up, things will skew back toward Nintendo and anime. We'll see. But they had something for all ages. That's another insight. If you're the Trek person and you're plus one or the rest of your family doesn't care about Star Trek, fine, everybody scatters. So, that's just good planning. That's just good event planning. So good on them. So I'm thinking about Vegas a lot as I go through this and the old experience. And I'm wondering what people that went through, that knew the experience, are thinking about this. What took me another nanosecond to get to was, what about all the people who never got to go to the experience? And they've heard about it their whole lives. And this was a taste of it. And if this was fun, then yay. I don't know who went through, unless you're just a real crusty butt and you're upset about the railings on the bridge. Would you have rather not had anything? Because that's kind of what the choice was. So, it was an amazing reuse. I was even thrilled because the horseshoe, the command area, was cordoned off. Only the actors used it. The crowds were on the ramp and the aft stations. I was a little upset that they were using the Picard Bridge for a tourist attraction with people tromping on it for a month. Thousands of people are going to trample through that carpet. Well, it had new carpet and different carpet, and it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. It'll still survive, I think, in good shape to be used down the line again. But it dawned on me, no matter what kind of a fan you are you before 2008 and you got to go? Were you around in 2008 and never got to go to Vegas and the experience? Or have you come along since with your fandom and you've only heard about it? Or somehow you have no clue about any of this Star Trek The Experience business. You have no clue what we're talking about. And you just show up because it's Star Trek and you have fun. And it's the coolest thing you've ever seen in your young fandom life. And that's cool too. On all the burners, I think it clicks. Like I said, my biggest critique was the lack of signage. And then one more wave of realization rolled over me a couple of days later. It was amazing meta Star Trek universe to say that you're on the D, but it's the D at the Fleet Museum. So it's not the D of the film TV adventures. So they are able to introduce the caveat, right? They can make it canon that these modifications, the reason there's 40 people in this huge turbo lift is because it was a specially installed turbo lift to handle tour crowds at the 8th and Prime Museum. Okay. That part's done. But what's just lurking below that? When you had the choice of what to do for a Star Trek installation at FanFest nights at Universal, when you had the wide, broad, 60-year almost canvas of Star Trek, what did you go to? You went to the D. Now, you went to the D in Picard terms, arguably maybe the most beloved season of all modern Star Trek. And that I know that is saying that Gen Z and Gen Alpha have not chimed in yet about Discovery and Discovery's impact, just the way people denigrated DS9 and Voyager back in the day. Let's let another generation roll in before we totally write the judgment on all these series. But right now in 2025, look what was used. The most universally acceptable, now that sadly the original series is kind of passed out of a lot of people's radar. But that realization that they went to they utilized the D through the lens of the History Museum reminded me of something. When the experience back in 2000, 2008 first went down, because, and let it be the record, Cedar Fair, the owner, and Paramount, and whatever the hell was happening with the Viacom divorce, they were still in favor of continuing. It was the Hilton local management that had wanted rid of the Star Trek, the whole installation, which was a huge built piece. They'd wanted rid of it for years. As soon as that management turned over into the next three, they all thought they could put better use to it. And they didn't, even in the 90s, they didn't think it was a fit. They soon found out that when it was gone, nothing else came along to fill that space. Nothing, and that the Hilton was going downhill. They lost their branding. They lost their. We all know. It's karma what happened to the Las Vegas Hilton for not extending the Star Trek contract. Talk about old school being blind to the power, not just the power of the ideas, but the power of the purse with Star Trek. Brought in a lot of bucks. And some of the bartenders, the old timers at the Space Quest bar outside of the Star Trek area, but right there next door to Quark's. The few years before the convention moved over, the Creation Con moved from there to the Rio, and they gave up with no experience there, but they kept it up for another year or two. Those bartenders said, yeah, they now realize what they lost. So I don't mean to relitigate all that history. What I'm saying is that when it went down, there was talk. Neonopolis, my very first blog entries were about going to Vegas and with some other people pitching the idea of Neonopolis, and they did it themselves, bought pieces of the excavated experience and we're going to move them over to another structure and assemble something, which sounded much easier than they thought it was much easier than it was in real life. They bought a license. They were going to be the licensed Star Trek interactive event place, still in Vegas, just downtown. If you want to find my archival blog, go back and look at some video and some blog posts back at the time. It was actually writing news stories. One of the problems with looking at doing a new experience, even 10 years later, the original experience was built right in the heyday of Next Gen and DS9. And it was promoting those shows, and the Next Gen movies were happening. One of the problems 10 years later was suddenly those were gone. Those were not in active production. And 10 years later, we didn't know what the future of social media. Now, in hindsight, we get it. At the time, one of the stumbling blocks to moving forward with an experience, besides who's going to sponsor and pay for it, was what do you do? What do you depict? And as we oozed into the JJ movie era, when at first a lot of people were bedazzled by the new era and the Kelvinverse before, as I kept trying to quietly say, these are 2-hour movies. Are they really going to, even if you love every second of it, are they really going to invest, say, the way Star Wars did out of the blue? Star Wars came out of the blue on its own and also within its own franchise. The JJ movies came with 40-something years of Star Trek already out there, and even its own fan base not only was split in opinion, but was split with its heart. How many 100 hours back then of prime Star Trek was there to compete with this 2 hours? All this to say, when you're talking about investing millions into a set piece like the experience had been, what do you depict? What part of Star Trek do you go to? Or do you divide it up in a pie the way a couple of European theme park events were done? Do you divide it up in a pie and have a different section represent different eras somehow? So, which is what, where was it? In the UK or Germany? That was I remember the thing representing Enterprise was the Armory. Herman Zimmerman was in charge of designing it. I have plans around it somewhere. I did imagery consulting back in the day when that's what I did. Only we didn't have titles the way they do now. It was just, oh, well, Larry will help you do this. Not being an employee, I'm just a 1099er. My point is, one of the stumbling blocks to keeping the experience going was no one knew what direction to go. It was a very influx time for the franchise, in case you didn't know. Now look, we've trotted out 5 or 6 different shows. I'm not saying that, we went with, just doing the math of brain and memory and the math of heart. What are the great unwashed people going to be most familiar with, and what is it easiest to tell a story with? And to do the then and the now. The dilemma, the stumbling block of doing a new experience in the late aughts and early teens was, what do we go with? Do we wait for something to come along and assert itself and suddenly get popular? Oh, that's what we do. Is our bar going to be Quark's again because Quark's is old? I mean, it's not exactly like the Starfleet bar, the redressed American Legion Hall in Star Trek 09 was anything dynamic or memorable Do you go back and do the K7 bar? That has more. After Quarks, what bar of all the bars built in all the shady planets in DS9 and Voyager and Next Gen, what has the most emotional resonance with people after Quarks? The K7 bar, right? Do you do that? Is that what you do? Or is the original? See, that's what faced people. I realized that none of that hem hawing happened here, or maybe it did, but very quickly, powers that be, brains that be, designers that be decided this is what we're going to go with for this installation. Now, it's only a month of weekends. It didn't need to have there wasn't a huge investment. Nobody's talking about having to do something that's going to sit here for 10 years. So that may have taken some of the burden of decision making away. But it did strike me a couple of days later. I remember the days when people said, well, if we did do another experience, what do we base it on? What do we depict? The one thing or the 5 things? How do we go at it? And all these years later, and all these new Star Treks later, in small doses, no 26 episode seasons here, do you realize that Discovery is going to have far fewer episodes? It does than even Enterprise, and Enterprise was the runt of the litter. No more. Yeah, someone just made a decision, or the group made the decision. Let's go with this. It makes sense. Boom. Is there any way coming out of FanFest nights, if the fandom hunger continues, if the FanFest nights do well, and whether or not Star Trek continues to lead the popularity among the other 7, and it's not a contest, it's there, it's paid for, let's see what happens. Is there any way that FanFest nights and the Star Trek portion of it, could portend to be one big giant circle back to where we were with the adventure happening in the mid-late 80s through 91? Does enough of a new generation get hungry? Are powers that be shown dollar signs and happy faces and social media? Are they shown the way that this could work again? Right now at Viacom, at Paramount Global, there is no parks department division. There's an events and parks oversight. Would somebody at some point decide to re-expand that? Now, part of what drew parks and all that was Paramount would run them and then use the different franchises to pop, just like Disney would do at Disneyland, except Paramount Global is no Disney. Disney's got 47 major franchise brands, recognizable characters, 4,700 maybe. Paramount has a few. And of course, Star Trek would lead the way. And there's only so much you could do with Mission Impossible, or even, I don't know, pick another one, or that's in that Viacom family, like SpongeBob used to be, still is. Some of the other ones, but you've got kids stuff, you've got adults. Would anything ever get back to convincing Paramount to go back to a stake in hands-on running of theme parks? Well, at the moment, there is so much uproar, confusion, chaos, flux is the nice word to say, about everything Paramount, that no one's going to jump out and say, and in the middle of all of us not even able to bring a Star Trek movie to bear, we're going to start theme parks. No. But is the seed going to be planted here? So finally, when the dust settles and people are in position to make stable choices, people are empowered, they think they're going to have a job longer than a year, to make choices like this, and that's seen as a thing. And, other world forces like, I don't know, the economy, we don't go into a depression again. If all that lines up, could this have been the start of reminding the fan base and the corporate folk what this kind of thing looks like? At least they picked out what the design element was going to be. Hey, that was a major victory. And as some of the fans I talk to show up from whatever their background is, they knew Vegas, they wish they'd known Vegas, they have no clue about Vegas. And I say Vegas, I mean the experience. We'll see. Meanwhile, there's 3 more weekends. Will these numbers hold up? Will this excitement hold up? We'll see. You'll see a lot of, the reveals online. They ask all the media, all the social media folks, not to show not just to do a continuous movie scan of the whole thing, which I understand. Of course not. You want to have some surprises. When you're not like sitting back critiquing the design, critiquing how the actors are doing in their roles. Yeah. And I must say, most of them did. In fact, the second time through, the young ops lieutenant officer who was with us in the turbo lift when things went crazy, in many ways felt like he was channeling Rutherford from Lower Decks. Didn't have a cyber. He had glasses, no cyber eyepiece, but no, it was good. And yes, they did have Andorians and some Trill and some Vulcans. An Afrosian. There was an Afrosian that I had to double check wasn't Klingon once again, engineer. So, good on everybody. Good on everyone, Universal, everybody at Paramount who put this together, who conceived, designed, built it. Yes, repurposed the D bridge, all the time and energy that went into the food menu. If you have a chance to go, and bear in mind that there are several, there's a basic ticket. There's the ticket that lets you get into the park at 2 p.m. so you can enjoy the normal park before it shuts down and alters over. There's a 2-day pass. You can do all of that. I mean, it's universalstudioshollywood.com. The nominal start time on the Friday, Saturday, Sundays for just FanFests is 7. Opening night was open till 2 a.m. So you have a chance to utilize all of that. And probably as the night goes on, the crowds go down, so you might have a chance at getting at things easier than you can otherwise. You're perfectly welcome to go camp just at Star Trek all night long. And yes, have a moment to know how it's going to go, so you can go over here and take pictures of this Akutogram or that panel. And you'll see movies of LeVar and Will, Michelle Hurd sitting in the first officer's seat in Riker's chair. You'll see a lot of video of all that happening and people having a good time of the celebs. Tawny and Eugene just geeking out to be there in live action. It was a great time. Kudos on them. If you're reading any bashing online, gang, I understand people being hurt, their passion being broken, but in the big picture, this was making so many people happy. They did such a good job. There was a lot of thought put in. There was money spent on things that didn't have to be. There was care shown in layers and levels that didn't have to be, but was. And a lot of it's because I know some of our friends who were oversighting those things, overseeing them, either insisted on that or they just made sure the details were good. So it was a great experience. Not a capital E experience, but a little E experience. I hope no one who knew the experience was disappointed. I really don't think that's happening here. It's a different concept. It's a different time period for its duration. And most of all, it's been 15, 17 years since the experience closed. 17 years since the experience closed. And even if you knew the experience, you're missing it enough. This taste, and it was more than a taste. This 1-course meal, not a 5-course meal, really brought it back. Really, I know it did for Amy. She was looking at the young lady being a Vulcan at one point and saying it reminded her of Lieutenant Commander Tequila, her character back in the day. So that's going to do it today, gang. I just wanted to present a review, and also I was not prepared to start thinking down the line about what this all might portend, whether it was intended or not, what we can glean from this, where things had been even 10 and 20 years ago and where things are now, and what it tells us about our fandom and what it tells us about the franchise holders, even as they may not feel as free to make bold decisions because we're still waiting on the world to settle down outside. Yeah. that's going to do it for us. I'm going to take my break here in just a second, go to the chat, except to say, I want to remind everybody that if you want to wish the great Ralph Sinensky happy birthday as he turns 102 on May 1st this week, there is a public greeting card you can go over online. There, I just put it in the chat. You can go wish Ralph a happy. He is still very much with us. He has shared so much since he came out of his cave of hurt, maybe 15 years ago. He didn't talk about Star Trek because he, of all the people to have lived this long and prospered and shared so much with us of his whole career as a director and as a theater producer director too, and to have delivered classic episodes like Metamorphosis and This Side of Paradise and Tomorrow is Yesterday and Tholian Web, even though he was fired from Tholian Web with stupid trumped up causes. Bread and Circuses is another one. Obsession is another one. Yeah, there's a chance to go over and say happy birthday if you hadn't had a chance to yet. Just a real reminder, we'll see what happens down the line. Neville Page, the great current designer of all things Alien for the new franchise, has a Kickstarter starting on May 1st also for his new book, Beauty in the Beast, which is going to be very revelatory. Helping him boost that as well. Just, look up. It's an actual Kickstarter. Neville Page. Look it up and you can get yourself there. And if you're interested in FanFest nights through the run, again, the next 3 weekends through May 18th, Friday, Saturday, Sunday nights, you can just check out Universal Studios Hollywood. I think if you Googled FanFest nights. And may I offer one idea here? As I found out, retrospect, someone already is. I've got a tour from Trekland Treks coming up. Trekland Treks. Your real customized away mission in real life in Southern California to real life locations used on any of the eras of Star Trek that sat down here, shot down here. Their stages sat here. Hey, it's a perfect time if you're coming to town for FanFest nights on an adjacent night, just like the people from Virginia. You too may want to, and some other folks that I know coming in from out of town, you too may want to do a Trekland Trek. If you've got tickets or try to get tickets for Friday or Saturday or Sunday, that means a few other days you're probably doing touristy stuff around SoCal. So between now and the end, May 18th, I have 2 Thursdays that are gone for tours, but the rest of the weeks are open. If you find yourself coming to LA and want to add to your Star Trek experience, it's great. It's a great way. So just check out my webpage, LarryNemechek.com, or you can go to TreklandTreks.com, read all about it, get in touch with me. We will custom design your day. I'll concierge you, drive you. You don't have to worry about LA traffic, what the details are anywhere. We'll handle all that. We'll plan it in advance. 4 stops, a quick lunch, and we will tailor it to what you want to do as much as we're able to, and depending on what time of the week it is, right? Weekend versus weekday and all that. But we'll get into that. Get in touch with me. It's not too late, and we'll see what happens. If you're going to be in town anyway, all right? That is going to do it today, gang. I'm going to take the break here. If you're watching us later, maybe you can jump in here and be live with us. But please, if you're watching later on YouTube, make sure to jump in, leave a comment. If any of this has sparked any memories of the experience, if you wanted to go and never got a chance, if you went to FanFest nights and what your reaction to it was, that would be awesome to share with us too. Now, I'm going to go here in a second and see what everybody is saying live. But if you are leaving us now, let me just say, stay healthy, do all the things. Oh, no, I'm not going to say that yet. What I am going to say is I want to thank all of our Patreon folk, okay? Because they help me do this every month. So, yes, thanks, Chuck A. Thanks, James Kerwin, Diana Hopkins, Halberd Gunn Johnson, Lawrence Todd, Gary Wickstrom, Mitch Keith, Andrew Dzimski, Justin Weir, Joshua Patton, Pranakasha Productions, Chris Jiggins, Keith Rombach, and Comedy Forecast. And then our live wires, Jesse at Crusher Convo, Chris Jiggins, Am I? Yes, I am. Chris Garris. Sorry, guys. It was cold Friday night. I guess it's still with me. No, our live wires, please. Yes, yes, yes. Just it. Crusher Convo, Chris Garris, Robert McLean, Byron Bailey, J.R. Poole, Gary Williams, James Durkage, Dave Gregory, Dan Leckie, and Casey Shafsky. Thanks so much, everybody, for supporting my Patreon. If you want to too, it's very simple: $5 or $10 a month for the shout out, and the $10 folks get access to our older Portal 47 interviews. I know. Some of them are like 2 hours. Yeah. With backstage creatives, many of whom you've never heard from before, but sharing so much about their life and work and their time of Star Trek and their field. Patreon.com/Trekland Live. I much appreciate it. That brings up the idea that, boom, a new Trek Files is out today. Yay. The new Trek Files home is at thetrekfiles.com, which is our Memory Alpha page, which now makes the whole series into our 13th season easily scannable. New episode is out today. It's a return with our friend, the engineer, talking about some engineering parts of Star Trek. But here's the thing. Thank you for being in my Patreon. For $1 a month, you can also be in the Roddenberry Patreon, in the Mission Log Discord, and you can join us where the Trek Files community is officially sitting, much more interactive than the Facebook page. And every other Monday, we have Trekophiles Tonight. It's a live hour plus with me on the Discord app in the Discord system with all the Trekophiles spelled with an F. We just started it a couple of months ago. Love to have you join us. $1 a month for the Roddenberry. You get access to all their shows and audience, too, for $1 a month. And you can come and join us if you enjoy the Trek Files. I'd love to hear from you. I never have any real interaction with the Trek Files community. Aside from Friday night at the opening, 5 or 6, 7 different people who I'd never met before from around the country came up and said, "Are you Larry? We really enjoy the Trek Files," which warmed my heart and made me realize once again, we know a number, but we have no clue of interacting. So I told all those folks to check out the Discord and come in. But I appreciate that. It's still one of the surprises of finding out how many people love the Trek Files, and they have no way to say it half the time unless it's live like that. Well, we have the Discord and we have Trekophiles Tonight now, every other Monday at 4 p.m. Pacific time. That's going to do it, gang. Of course, all my socials are here. That includes Blue Sky for Larry Nemechek, as well as Twitter, Trekland, YouTube. Please like and subscribe right now. Ring the bell, do the things. And I said, Portal 47, check it out. It is the answer to the post-con blues because it's like a mini-con all year long. We focus on the backstage, folks. It is your backstage pass to Star Trek. Boldly going where no savvy fan has gone before. That's going to do it here and now. I will advise you to keep dialing and please stay healthy. Do all the things. Stay woke. Check the sources. And Trek well, everybody. Okay, let's dive into the chat here. The chat. Good to see folks. Hey, Chuck A. Thanks. It was good to see Chuck A. You were there. Good to see you at Trekophiles Tonight on Monday, yesterday. Oh, look here. Hi, Doc. First time you could actually make it live. I love your show. Well, thank you. You mean this or you mean anything else I do? Because there's different flavors. But thank you very much. Good to see you. Hope you're enjoying it. Hope you're enjoying the community here too. Yeah. Well, Melanie, once you get there, then you can go around. You can, if it's from 7 to 2, you can get to everything at least once, depending on what's going on or what's popular. I'm just saying you might be braced for Star Trek to be the most popular, which is a healthy thing, and it shows. And that kind of thing is very apparent to the powers that be. I know I'm laughing, but I'm not laughing. But thank you for that. Thanks for sharing. Hey, Christoph, Good to see you in Vienna. And Ma Cherie. Yes. Plushy Leonard is right back there. Plushy McCoy. Still in your North Carolina. Plenty to do. Plenty to do. Hi, Rose. Good to see you. Hope you're well. Absolutely. Absolutely. Hey, Melanie. A blurb on the news about a $750 million tax thing for filming in California. Yeah. They have finally, about 20 years too late, starting to realize that they've got to compete with all the cheap states that have made it even cheaper and that have pulled filming out of California before the entire industry. What they're talking about now is not letting happen to Hollywood and the film industry what happened to Detroit and the car industry. I mean, Detroit used to be the car capital. Well, now there's auto plants built all over the country in cheaper places, and a lot of them are non-union places. And because, greed is eternal. And that's what's happening. This 750 is meant to be a tax credit for producers, for studios, for independent producers. It's been just nothing for years. Picard famously took advantage of this, but it was a drop in the bucket. And Picard only shot in LA because Sir Patrick wanted that. Everything else is Toronto, where it costs 1/4 as much to film the same 10 episodes of Star Trek as it did in LA, which was sad. That's what they're having to, that's the kind of scale they're having to compete against and retain people here. And not lose everything to Atlanta and to Vancouver and to Toronto and to New Orleans and to you name it. You name it. And that's what it is. It needs to be way bigger than that to actually be a help. RMK. RMK in the UK. Yeah. Melanie, these are all good points, including your future Chamber of Commerce Tourism Board statue, future home of Bradward Boimler. Awesome. And George Lucas. There you go. Oh, and they have a big May the 4th party. Okay. There you go. May the 4th always sneaks up on me because it's the beginning of a month. And yeah. There you go. This is what I always say, my figure, is that no matter where you are, you're going to get the benefit from Comic-Con or Trek Vegas or you name it. And there's an opening, a premiere in New York or LA, because modern times, you don't just get 2 minutes on Entertainment Tonight. Now you can watch everybody and their dog and their influencer throwing up their video, whether it's official studio stuff or it's people who were there. So yeah, I invite everybody to go over. If you didn't see my lives, I did 3 lives that night. One of them in the queue line and a little bit past it, and one with Amy and her daughter, and one with the folks from Virginia at the food sites. A lot of fun. Yes, Jerry O'Connell was there. Sorry about that. Hey, Sherry, we do some short videos out of Instagram, but I just have not been a hardcore TikToker just because it feels like I could spend all my time doing that. Yeah. But there you go. Thank you. I'm glad yes, you did. Thank you for boosting my signal, my figure. My goodness, that goes both ways. There's about 4 different Rose songs over the last 4 decades. Yeah. Well, there's San Antonio Rose, for one thing, where my brain goes first. Hey, Dave, thank you back from the great Canadian North, where you just had a big election yesterday for sanity. What? YouTube and Twitch welcoming you to an English-only chat in German is quite confusing at 11:50. I know, Christoph. Who else is still here? Hey, well, it was interesting. Okay, that's a very safe adjective there for you. There you go. This is probably true too. Also, my figure. Yeah, it wasn't just on your way out. It was like way away from the other two. So there you go. Caught a lot of people on their way in, I should say. A lot of people were partaking there. Hey, Carl, greetings programs. Yep. Hi. Are we being do we have a raid going on here? I don't know. What's happening there on oh, people actually on Twitter found us here. How about that? We had a Twitter raid. Maybe it passed on. Doc, I'm glad you did make it by for a while. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. The Tuesday day seems to totally be needing reinvention. Look, some old school, yeah, some old school Twitch raid came in, expecting the thing to be flying by. How about that? Spoken like a true Twitcher. Yeah, yeah. I almost went down to the Back to the Future, and it was so cold by then. I just didn't want to. I just didn't want to. Yeah. Oh my gosh, Chuck A, you were at the opening of Star Trek: The Adventure. Wow. Do you remember much about the details, or have any of your do you have any of your souvenirs or anything? Mm-mm-mm-mm-mm. And the experience second, yes, I was at the opening of the experience for the gala part of it. I was covering, and I had worked on it, and yeah. This is what I said, Joel. Yeah, the big turtle left felt like Haunted Mansion. Yeah, I almost expected the thing to stretch out above us, but that didn't happen. But you definitely have Star Tours / original Star Trek: The Experience, The Ride vibes. The Ride became the Klingon Adventure or Klingon Invasion. It was Klingon Invasion, Borg Encounter, or Klingon Encounter, Borg Invasion when they had to have two titles. Okay. You still love Universal a little more than Disney. All righty. That's great. Yeah, everybody. Yeah, that air rush was just really uncanny. And then to read years later that it was all an accident. It was just a happy accident. Like discovering radium or something, only with a lot less a lot less fatality attached to it. Well, as I'm saying, Sherry, for those who never got a chance to, this is kind of a taste. And I was really underplaying. I didn't go in remembering that, realizing that. And that's why it was good to talk to folks. And including Amy's daughter, who said, "Oh, I've only heard her talk about it. I never got to go." And I'm so glad for those folks who've had to hear us talk about it or just sincerely missed it for years, that you get to go and have a feel for what that was like, having real live actors in uniform running around on sets with an adventure happening. This is true also. It kept people away from the captain's chair and the really pristine stuff, and the con and ops down front. But it was also an ADA thing too about the ramps. Yep. Okay, glad we could get so many people together. Oh, who is bopping in from Roddenberry? Hi, guys. Well, this is what I'm saying, my figure. You've got the universal factor, which is just, I mean, from what I saw Friday, now, unless things dive off, I would expect that the numbers it was a sellout. Now, whether or not all the people who bought tickets came because of the weather, it was really, it was like in the high upper 40s. And to be wandering around at night, and you had to like go over to the lot for the tour part for Back to the Future. I would think warm weather is supposed to come back this week and maybe stay. So we'll see what happens the other weekends in the turnout. Let's see. This is yes, Carl, trying to keep people from wharfing over the railings. Yep. You know what? This was an idea. Thank you for asking about Cadet Alice. But Cadet Alice has a Japanese class on Saturday that starts at 8, and she still keeps to a quasi early bedtime. And we decided that this kind of thing might need to wait a couple more years. If it was during the day, probably. But since it was a nighttime, and you know what? I'm glad, because it was so cold. I don't think anybody realized how cold it was going to get. I had a jacket on, but still. But the idea was out there. It would have been awesome for Cadet Alice to see the D Bridge and everything, and all those people in uniform in all their glory, and some of the visual effects too. Yes. Hey, hey, at Roddenberry Entertainment, it's nice of you to bop in, and everybody enjoyed you bopping in today. Yay. The trial never ends. Maybe Universal Fan Fest can expand geographically to Europe, but skip Dusseldorf this time, direct to Vienna, please, or Munich. Yeah, Universal doesn't have a theme park in Europe, do they? Unlike like Disneyland with Paris and was it Tokyo? But skip Dusseldorf this time, yeah, as we've been talking about recently. Well, Red Shirt Bob, I don't think you're as late as I was today. But good to see you anyway. I hope you rewind and watch the soapbox today. Oh, Cassandra, that's very nice. Thank you. You mean the lives? The lives on Instagram? Thank you for following along. Yeah. There was a guy that had he had a bakery bread truck run. That was his job in Kentucky. Oh, I forgot his name. I had him on video and then it got wiped. But he came every year, and his goal was to ride one of the rides 1,701 times. And he was up into the hundreds. He came 3 and 4 times a year. He came to the TrekCon once it was there, but he came on his own during the rest of the year, and he would go, and everybody at the station, everybody at Quarks and the experience, the employees all knew him. I'm so sad that was one of my favorite fan interviews ever, and it got wiped when I was on cards on my old HD video. But I always remember him. He came all the way from the hills of Kentucky and taken a vacation from running his bread truck route, because he loved the experience so much. And his goal was to make it 1,701 times. And it closed, and he didn't get to do that. Hey, Rico! It's Rico Anderson, everybody. Yes. Great America had one. We had a story one of the actors at one of the parks did a story about all the non-Vegas Paramount theme parks that had Star Trek attractions. And you were a Klingon. Rico, I didn't know that. Maybe you mentioned it years ago. Do you have any pictures of that still? Surely you do. Yes, Star Trek Earth Tour. The one, yes, we had news, and there was Carowinds back east had a Borg roller coaster themed, but you all had the next biggest establishment, I think, of like actual actors in costume after Vegas. We have to talk about that sometime. If you mean the museum, the fan film sets from Farragut that became Continues are no longer in Georgia. They're in Ohio now, and they're technically shut down. Oh no, my figure, you have a canon explanation. This is Star Trek. This isn't just any fly-by-night, flimsy flim-flam franchise. This is Star Trek, damn it. And those Klingons were smooth-headed because of the augment virus. It just took us 30 years to get there. Yes, indeed. No, the bigger turbo lift capacity was installed for tourists. I love that. They didn't say that. They just said, you'll notice that the D has several modifications to handle our museum visitor traffic. It was great. Some sort of Trek MCU contract between the two cities. I missed this. Yep, Paramount brought people from the studio to train us in all things Trek characters because it was funny because you were already all fans. Yep, they had the big opening with Shatner. Well, I know Mike Westmore and a couple of makeup people went to Vegas to talk about, doing all the different makeups once they had the prosthetics. Hey, Red Shirt Bob. Well, see, that's the other thing about Ticonderoga, it being there to satisfy that hunger. And they're adding their TNG bridge, so you get a little more taste of that. But that's what this was. This was actually that you had sets, but you also had actors in costume acting out a story, and you had effects running. Yes, yes. What Sherry said, everybody. What Sherry said. Yeah. Well, again, Joel, you're not alone, and that's one of the things that I dawned on me that this is really one of the first times there's been this major an installation since the experience closed. Should have put it that way. Well, there you go. There you go, Donnie. That's a big admission. I know. There you go. Well, this was a thing. They had the red shirt, the 10 forward bar there. It's kind of, 10 forward would be very Starfleety and kind of, I don't want to say bland, but it'll be very by the book and square. And that's cool. But it's kind of simple for what it was. The cool thing about Quarks was it had the stories and it had all the banners and you could have all the game machines and the bar was so iconically weird and all the set dressing was weird. And 10 forward was very nice and pristine. Now, if you mean the TNG, the 10 forward bar at the pop-up, the hologram of young Guinan that you saw in Picard, that was more along the lines of a Quark. It was so quirky, and there are all kinds of nooks and crannies you could explore and all that. Yeah. Hey, P, I'm good. I owe you an answer on something. I need to go find the original that you sent me and get back to that. Well, this is interesting. Does Universal Orlando have the horror nights? I don't know. Somebody maybe could tell me. If they don't have the horror nights, I don't think they'll be doing something like this. Is it? It's not as compact as Hollywood is. Universal Orlando's spread out more like a Disney campus, isn't it? Well, I totally agree. And like I said, in the moment, there was a lot of disagreement about a lot of malaise about what direction to take it, how to theme it. And now we've had a ton of shows, and what do you do now? So yes, Paramount owns the Ninja Turtles as well. Paramount can't even. Yes. No, it's not in my junk mail, but I need to know the date. Can you just re-ping me again? That would be way easier. Thanks. Yay, yes. Yeah, good. it had universal appeal. There you go. The aesthetic of the reboot was very dull and universal. Yeah, they need a Terry Erdman consulting them. Yeah. It would be great to get remasters for the Star Trek games. Yes. Yep. 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 So here, everybody, here is the birthday card for Ralph Sininsky. His actual birthday is the 1st. He'll be 102. We need a Star Trek Okie. William, I hate to tell you this, but Lieutenant Hawk in First Contact and me are about the biggest Star Trek Okie experience you're going to get. So, oh, Rose, well, we think back at you. Back at you. Well, welcome to my world. This is exactly what I've been trying to do for 30 years and formally and make a business out of it with Portal 47 for the last 10. But yeah, yes, absolutely. Think how much has already been lost or just a tiny sliver preserved. Absolutely. Absolute me. Well, Ma, I appreciate that. Maybe someday. I don't know that I have corporations entertainment-wise ranked this way, Donnie, but there you go. I know you're not alone, though. Wait, are you supposed to? Are you supposed to be on my Patreon list, Cass? Oh no, I will check if that's what you mean. I appreciate that, though. I appreciate that. Yes, she is. Jenna. So much love to go to FanFest tonight, but I cannot right now. Hope there will be a next FanFest in the future. Yes, yes, yes. Where are you coming to us from? I think I know, but you tell me. Let's see. Boy, Christoph, you're just never going to let me forget that, are you? Yeah, yeah. Absolutely, Donnie. Absolutely. Even though it's among your honorable mentions, we're very honored that you make time to show up to one of your honorable mention live streams. Yes, thank you. Yes, Dave, you did. Just know that it's not Trekophiles like Bit-O-Honey. It's Trekophiles spelled with an F. Okay. Oh, Pedro, it's the 30th anniversary of a Final Unity. Favorite game. How does that rank? Do people rank the games? Because there's only like 47 of them, right? Just barely, just barely. Well, what's his name himself got beat in his own district or riding. I always love where in the world did that term come from? Riding his own home district. Yeah. May is Star Wars month. August is Power Rangers month. Okay. And September is Star Trek month. There you go. Oh, yeah. See, I was supposed to say, Dave, you're not Canadian, you're Michigander. But there you go. There you go. Awesome. Sure. How cold was it? It was so cold. Yeah. Gang, I think we're at the end of the line here. So I appreciate everybody coming in. Thanks for listening to my rambles here about fan experience. I know not everybody can get there, but if you're thinking about it, please do. Meanwhile, enjoy everything that you see coming out, all the streaming, all the insights. We will see if any dominoes go into motion because of this. And but you have to admit, I was not thinking about as all the hoopla came up. much less how this might be a taste for all the folks who've always wondered what the experience was like. Of course, there was there was a retail store too. The retail store had a lot of merch too. You saw a lot of people wearing shirts that they had just bought, which was interesting. So I'll have some more going up. And again, my invitation, if anyone is coming to FanFest nights, to get in touch with me about a Trek tour on one of your accompanying side days. Be awesome. But hurry, because we're getting close and a couple of the Thursdays are already gone. Anyway, gang, I think that's going to do it for another week. Appreciate it. We've got a couple of guests coming up, so we're going to have some fun stuff going on here on Tuesdays Live. But as I said, once again, thanks to all of our Patreoners. Thanks so much. And if you would like to jump in and help on the Trekland Patreon, it's very simple. It's actually as /Trekland Live at Patreon. It's $5 and $10 a month. Really do appreciate you doing that. If you want to access while you're enjoying the Trek Files, and I know many, many people do, and they do it in isolation. So we're trying to build community on top of the great episodes. The new one out today. Hey, jump in for $1 a month on the Roddenberry Patreon, the Mission Log Patreon, and come over to the Discord. That gets you into the Discord access, and that's where you can enjoy the Trekophiles community and the live show every other Monday at 4, and all the other Roddenberry shows and their fandoms, and a lot of fans who are just doing Discord live hours that aren't connected to a show, but they're still in a Star Trek vein. There's an awful lot of that. Our friend Paul Horvath has a show Wednesdays, I think, but it's not connected to a Roddenberry show, but it's just a fun Trek hour to get together using the Discord media to do that. Otherwise, yes, the Trek Files would love to have you watching, listening, downloading at thetrekfiles.com. And again, think, if you will, about a Trekland Trek. You know where to find me. Love to help you fix that up for your own customized away mission at real life Star Trek filming sites. Hey, it's the simple Larry Nemechek on Twitter, on Facebook, Twitter and Blue Sky. Yes. And it's Larry Nemechek's Trekland, where you are now if you're on YouTube or Facebook or even the Twitch. Instagram also. Love to see you there and joining us. Hey, I am just like 15 shy of 4,300 on the new Blue Sky account. So we'll see if I can creep over another landmark line. Meanwhile, be with us next Tuesday. If you're watching us later on, hopefully you can make it live some week. And wherever you are in this world, whatever you're joining us by, please, please, please stay healthy, do all the things, stay woke, check the sources, and Trek well, everybody. Oh. Yes. Happy birthday, Melanie. And happy birthday, Kate Mulgrew. There you go, Alan. Good to do you. Good to see you. I did. Maybe you can rewind. Agree, Pedro, and I agree, Jay-Z. Hi, Jay-Z. Are you new? I should be off by now, I know, but I see a whole explosion of chatter here. And yes, the wheels aren't quite cranking yet. We're trying to get through. Also, people are wondering what the hell the economic landscape is going to look like. But yes, the 60th is going to be big for 2025. And there you go, Pedro. All right, everybody. For reals, thanks for jumping in. Jay-Z, maybe you can get in with us earlier. And truly Trek well, everybody.